The story of Christmas really begins in the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and us. But it did not take long for us to forget all about the one in whose image we were so lovingly and carefully created. It did not take long for people to begin forgetting and forsaking God as people do. It did not take long for the whole world to fill up with, well, something other than the good God intended. And everything that God created very good went very wrong. So God came up with a solution to the problem. He would clean away the dirt. The only problem was there was no baby, just bathwater. Wait, no, there was one baby God would spare. His name was Noah. God would raise Noah and his family for his sake high above the same floodwaters that would come crashing down on all those who had rejected the good God intended. And Noah would start over. Perhaps this time we would learn our lesson and remember that there is no life apart from its author. But alas, we are slow learners. So again, it wasn't long before people began forgetting and forsaking God, as people do. And again, the world fell far short of its potential. So God came up with a solution to the problem. In a world that had forgotten and forsaken him, he would ask one man to remember and remind. He would ask one man to remember and honor the God everyone else in the world had long forgotten and forsaken. So Abram started his family of faith, and his family of faith became the nation of Israel. And the nation of Israel, in a world that had long forgotten and forsaken God, was to remember and remind. God asked them to remind the world that God so loved the world. But wouldn't you know it? Before long, the very people whose religion, culture, and nation were specifically designed to remind them and the world of the good God and the good God intended. The rememberers and reminders themselves began to forget and forsake God, as people do. Those who had once boldly wrestled with the Almighty became soft on the sidelines. Alas, even the reminders can't seem to remember. So as the spiritually destructive floodwaters of self-sabotage had become physical floodwaters in the time of Noah, Israel's spiritual slavery to a subpar existence and major world idolatries became physical slavery to a major world superpower in the time of Moses. And yet, here again, it appears as though God's kindness trumps his pride. For he once again spared his people from the same waters that came crashing down on the enemies of God's children at the Red Sea. God's people had one more chance at a fresh start. But alas, it didn't take long before... You see where this is going, don't you? It's pretty clear at this point that the pattern of God's people forgetting and forsaking him would continue ad infinitum. But there is another equally appalling pattern leaping shockingly from these pages. In response to the eternally self-sabotaging pattern of humanity, we discover the eternally self-giving and forgiving pattern of divinity. God consistently refuses to forget and forsake the same people who consistently forget and forsake him. Friends, isn't that good news? God hasn't forgotten about you. This push-pull dichotomy, the brokenness of humanity and the graciousness of divinity, is the driving tension electrifying every page of Scripture. And at this point in the narrative, it is an unresolved tension. It is in no way obvious that the graciousness of God will win the day. At this point, all of God's temporary solutions have been, well, just that, temporary. We need a more sturdy, a more permanent solution. We need Christmas. Christmas is the strange solution God had in mind from the very beginning. Of course, no one saw it coming. I mean, how could they? To call it a strange solution is putting it far too mildly. Who would have thought that to get rid of the bathwater, God would become a baby in it? We want God to pull us out of our dirty bathwater, but if the problem isn't that we are in the bathwater, but that the bathwater is in us, then we need a solution that doesn't involve draining the tub. God already drained the tub once, and that didn't go so well for us. We want God to get us out of our difficult circumstances. But, and I hate to break this to you, we are our most difficult circumstance. Seriously, ever sleep through your alarm clock? Yeah, you can't even keep your most basic commitments to yourself. So don't tell me that you are not part of the problem. Ever done anything to make your life or world less than as good as it could possibly be? Then friend, you are a part of the problem. And of course, so am I. So God offers us His solution. He offers us Christmas. Rather than offering to change our circumstances for us, He offers to change us in our circumstances and even through our circumstances. Rather than getting us into heaven, He offers to get heaven into us. Heaven comes down. And heaven did come down into a manger. And heaven wants to come down into the mangy manger of your life too. Heaven and its Lord wants to be born in you, that you might be born again. God becomes a child in our world so that we might become children in His. And when you become His child, He makes you this promise. Though you have and will forget and forsake Him, He will never leave nor forsake you. Rather, He will come into your life and transform you from the inside out. That is the only real solution to our perennial problem. We need God. We need God to come in. We need Emmanuel. We need God with us. We need Christmas.
O come, Emmanuel, to free your captive Israel.
We need Christmas, and that is just what we get. But do we? I mean, that's what the world got. But is that really what we get? Is that what we will get this Christmas? God came into His world, but will He come into yours? Will you become open to God's presence this Christmas before you begin opening your presents this Christmas? Will you experience God coming into your bathwater? Will you make yourself vulnerable to the God who made Himself infinitely vulnerable to you? Will you make room for Him in the inn of your life? Will you honor Him with the gifts of your time, talent, and treasure? Will you light the path to Him like that heavenly orb? Will He be born into the mangy manger of your life? Will you carry Him into the world like that young teenage girl? Friends, you and I will forget and forsake God as people do but He will never leave or forsake us. God will never leave you. He will never forsake you. Rather, like He did all those years ago, He will come down and knock on the door to the end of your heart. And I want to encourage you to open the door and let Him in. Make Him room. Make Him room in your calendar. Make Him room in your budget. Make Him room in your week and in your day and in your head and in your heart. And then you will experience Christmas.
Nasi tu proti